Everyone, this is Melissa with Whimsy Stamps, and today we are going to be creating a card with the April paper door kit. And in the kit comes 3 distress markers. So what we're going to be doing is creating a scene with those distress markers. I also use Copics in this video and a die cut that's not available in the kit, but really you can do any die cut that you would like and use any markers or Copics or pencils that you would like as well. So I'm going to start with the green distress marker that comes in the kit, and I'm simply sketching in a landscape, some hills, with the brush end of the distress marker. Now what you're going to see me do is once I sketch in those hills, I'm just going to kind of brush in some color at the bottom, because what we will do is actually watercolor with I use a water brush, but you don't have to. You could actually use a jar of water and a paintbrush too. So what I like to do is, this is the Bristol Smooth cardstock that comes in your kit. Now what you're going to see me do is add some blue to the hills that are further away. I'm not going to put the blue in the closest portion of the card. And then all I'm going to do is take a spray bottle and spray some water onto the card. Now I do that because it really helps move that color quickly, and it doesn't stay saturated into the paper so that you see scribble marks. But you're going to see what happens when I add the blue to the green for the background hills is it makes them kind of look bluish green, which is good when you're trying to show in an image that something looks further away. So all I'm doing is moving the color around from the distress markers and really smushing kind of that color in. It's nice when you pre-wet the paper, or after you sketch the hills, you wet the paper with the spray bottle. I found that that gives you less hard edges from the marker that you make in the beginning, and it really helps you smush that color around and get it evenly distributed on your paper. So all I'm going to do is heat set that so that I can go ahead and start the sky. Now, if you'll notice, I have kind of a white spot on one of the hills. I do go back in and correct that in a little bit, so just ignore that for now. We will come back to it, and you can modify as you go so that things look better. So for the sky, I'm going to use the blue and the pink together. And all I do is put in little scribbles of color here and there with the blue and here and there with the pink. And then I cover up my hills because these markers will react with water. So if I cover up the hills, then that way I won't get strange splotches on the hill, unless you want to look like that. And I do that in the end in the sky, but I don't want that to happen on my hills. So all I'm doing is mushing that color around to get this real pretty kind of purpley, pink, blue color and my sky. And I repeat this over and over until I fill the whole sky. Now, I will say to you that when I did this, I kind of wish I had kept those colors a little bit more separate than I do in the end. I kind of mush them all together so they look really purple. But if you see the effect that is there right now, I think it would have been prettier had I kept the the blue and the pink a little bit separate so that you can see these nice distinct colors in the sky. So it looks like, the sun is setting somewhere and casting some beautiful sunlight onto the clouds to give you this pink and purpley blue sky. But you'll see I kind of mush all the color together and I lose that beautiful effect. So when you do it, you might want to try keeping those colors separate. So I just continue to go in and out of the scene with the water brush and the markers and smush in that color and then back to the markers again. And then what you'll do is you'll see me grab my heat tool and heat set and then add a whole nother layer to this card of color. So I will go ahead and heat set it now. And then I'm actually fixing the little line down by the hill, because when you do this, you want to bring that color right up to the edge of your hill so that it looks pretty even from hills to sky. Now, as you heat set this in watercolor on this Bristol Smooth paper, it does get a little bit warped, but just a quick trick for you is to place that piece of paper um, onto if you have a large die cut machine, just put it between the plates and run it through your die cut machine, maybe with another piece of cardstock, and what you'll get is a nice kind of smoothed out paper so that warping goes away. And also, if you have a really nice strong adhesive, that helps too when you adhere it to your card base. So I just dry this and you'll see me go back in here and touch up a few areas, and I'm just basically moving that color around until I get a sky kind of the way that I want it to appear. And I really like adding some of that pink into the sky. I think it gives it a really beautiful color and almost a sunset kind of appearance, as I said before. So once I get the sky the way I want it and I have it heat set, I will go in with my spritzer and then just spritz a little bit of water here and there. And I'm trying to get kind of larger drops of water, not a fine mist. I let that sit for a few seconds and then I go ahead and take a paper towel and suck up some of that color. So this is what I was talking about in terms of distress markers. They do react with water once they've been heat set. So um, if you want to spray water onto it and give these drops, you can, which is amazing. But if you don't want that, you don't want that reaction on the hills, then you just kind of cover them up to protect them from water. So I'm going to go ahead and dry that completely and use a circle die to go ahead and cut out a circle portion of that scene. You don't have to use a circle, that's just what I happen to use. And then I also use the embossing folder on a piece of the white cardstock that came in the kit, and I cut the center of that out so that I didn't have to pop up that circle. I kind of wanted it down in the paper. And partially that's because when I add the flowers to the side that you saw in the beginning, I didn't want them popped up so they would get caught on things. So I'm taking another piece of the white that comes in the kit and cutting it down to an A2 size card. I like a top fold card, so I'm cutting it at the 4 1/4 mark there, and then I will score it at the 5 1/2 mark so that I have that top fold card. And I typically make top fold cards. I don't know why. You can make a side fold too. Both would fit this card perfectly. Now I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the flowers that I want to use on the card and the hummingbird so that I can color those in Copic markers. Now, the paper that I'm stamping on for this is just the Hammermill cover copy. It's the kind with the frog on it. And I used my Memento Tuxedo black ink because that works well with Copics. Do not use Memento with the distress markers because that will run. If you want to use a ink with your distress markers, you could use something like VersaFine or VersaFine Clair. Those two will not run, and both of those are also available at Whimsy Stamps. So I'm just coloring up this hummingbird. I try to show you the caps of the markers as I go. I use G40, G43, and G46 for the green. And for the pink on this hummingbird's throat, I used an RV09 and I think an RV02. I don't remember, but you'll see it in the video. And now I'm going to move to the flowers, and I use the Y13 series of markers. I add a little bit of Y38 to the deepest part, and then I even go in with an R24, you'll see, to kind of darken the shadows that are closest to the center of the flower. So here is where I'm using my R24. I apologize, it's kind of off screen, but I should pull it into the screen, but it doesn't look like I did. So that was an R24. And then I go back in with the Y38 and kind of smush out that color, and then the Y15 and kind of make that even, and then the Y13 to really finish out the edges of the flower. So I didn't want this to be a Copic tutorial necessarily, since they're not available in your kit. Like I said, you could use your pencils or whatever media you have available. You could even use Crayola or paint with the distress markers. That is your choice. So I'll add some music so you can watch me finish coloring up some of these flowers. And I do actually stamp out, I think, 2 of the large flowers and 2 of the small flowers, even though I don't show that on video, so that I can add to the edge of the card. And now that I'm finished, I will simply take my small pair of scissors and fussy cut these flowers out. Now, I am I'm not leaving a white trim on these flowers because I wanted them to look like a bunch together instead of, individual flowers that I add to the edge of the circle. So I'll just do that for each individual image that I have, including the hummingbird, so that I can adhere those to the circle itself. Now that I've much finished the layout of my card, I would like to add a sentiment. So I'm going to put this back in the MISTI and use some anti-static tool to add to this paper. Make sure that before you do this step, your paper that you watercolored on is nice and dry. And then go ahead and add that anti-static tool so you don't get the embossing powder stuck all over. I'm using Versamark ink and I'm inking up that sentiment, pushing it down pretty good there, and then going ahead and adding that gold embossing powder that comes in your kit that's beautiful. It's a very fine embossing powder, so it really looks nice with the sentiments that are available on the stamp set that come in the kit. And I'll use my heat tool and simply heat up that embossing powder until it's all melted on there, and then I will put my card together with some adhesive, and I like to use my ATG to adhere the kind of the embossed portion that I made to the card, and then I put it all over because then that gives me the adhesive, in that circle to just go ahead and adhere the portion that we watercolored. And then for adding the flowers and the hummingbird, I use a little bit of on point glue. I really like on point glue because it has a nice fine metal tip that has a plug that goes into it. So that's what I use when I, need some kind of liquid adhesive. So I just adhere all my flowers, including the hummingbird, and this card is finished. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this card, and I do put a something on the top just to hold everything down. Join us again for more inspiration at the paper door with Whimsy Stamps.